What up, everybody? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal lore. Welcome back. If you're watching, you're able to see a man of incredible strength, a man that dwarfs other men, a man that dominated the arm wrestling industry for years, has over 60 championships. You might say, Lockdown, what the hell does this have to do with alien stuff? I'll get to that. I want you to witness this guy for a moment, okay? So there's great videos here, and let's take a look at this. Take a look at this picture. This man is named Cleve Dean, okay? This picture is not him with pigtails, which is what I thought. This is him bending a piece of rebar over his head. Rebar is made from melting steel with cross sections through it. It's incredibly strong. It's made for building buildings. He bent it over his head. Now, who is he? Why haven't you heard of him? You've heard of other arm wrestling people, but hey, you haven't heard of Mr. Dean. Well, it's because everything kind of sucks, and we don't get all the information. Okay, so welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing excellent and taking care of yourselves. So, why are we talking about Cleve Dean? Because we're talking about building an army. We're talking about how would you build a genetic army to fend off an alien race? Okay? Well, we know for millennia, if not millions of years, we have been harvested. We have been genetically harvested by genetic farmer species for our DNA. They're using us for our DNA. They're taking certain people's DNA and using it for their own. If you were to build an army, it seems as though you would want a somewhat diverse army. You would want an army that is psychically and emotionally and physically strong. You would want all of the realms of power you can think of to be on your side. You'd want a very highly emotionally evolved section, kind of like how there's different sections of the government and different sections of the military, Navy, Marines, Army, so on, Air Force. You'd want groups that are highly evolved in all of these categories, including the physical. So I was looking at different physical specimens throughout our human history. All we have is really recent human history, right? I mean, we've only had photography for the last 150 years. So I was looking at Cleve Dean. This man is massive. And I'm not talking about, just in size, but also in strength. He is a pig farmer from Georgia that weighs at least 500 to 600 pounds. Well, did. He's no longer with us. But he's from a small town called Pavo in the state of Georgia. From an early age, he would work every day on a farm. The grueling work and his large size came from genetics, but that country work basically set the stage for his career. But he's a big guy. There's lots of farmers that are just huge people. Do they develop over time, or is it genetics that develops over time? Maybe if you have a smaller body build, as a farmer, do you pass on, the need for your son to become larger to help you with this farming? I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas here. But whatever the case is, a lot of farmers are big guys. Maybe big guys are drawn to that big, heavy work. I don't know. But this gentleman, Cleve, is not the only one. There's also a huge arm wrestler by the name of Jeff Dabe, who's up in Minnesota. Their bodies are huge. Their hands can dwarf cans of beer, cans of soda. How is it that they're able to, have these genetics and the rest of us don't? These guys are special. And they're not just average. There's not a lot of these guys out there. There's a lot of tall NBA players. There's a lot of big NFL players. But the NFL players are nowhere near the size of these guys. These guys are massive. 500 pounds. You don't see a 500-pound NFL player out there, but you do see him in arm wrestling. He dominated the small competitions at Georgia and the Southern U.S. in the super heavyweight division, and then he's 6'7" tall. Oh shit! Oh my gosh! So yeah, he started winning in the '70s. Started making a little bit extra money. He put up $2,500 to anyone who thought could beat him, and he eventually made about $50,000 just on putting up money, trying to get people to attempt to take him on. And then he went into the championships, and the championships started to make him even more money. So again, making an army, right? We have these psionics, we call them P3 assets. They're individuals that can interact and communicate psychically with aliens. Okay, now because of that, the government's able to train them to interact with these aliens, and the aliens, when they're interacting with them while they're in the spaceships, our P3 assets, the individuals that are psychically enabled, are able to take down these aircraft because they're able to communicate and confuse the aliens. Even though you would think, what it doesn't make any sense. Why they're more developed than we are. Why would we be able to confuse them? Well, these P3 assets have been specifically trained. We've had 70, 80 years of taking down aircraft where we can bombard it with radar technology, and we can take them down and confuse them with our P3 assets that can communicate with them. Great. So we've got that section of our military created. Now we need what they call empaths, psychic empaths. And those individuals can communicate with aliens on more of a one-to-one, more loving vibration, and communicate our need for trade, our need for military assistance, our need for whatever on a more humanistic scale, on a more friendly scale, not by violently taking them down, but on a more democratic, diplomatic method of communication, right? Then, I'm thinking to myself, we need some SEALs, we need some Marines, we need some guys that are tough, badass people that can fight if need be, and we need some big guys, right? If there are big creatures out there, we need some big guys that can possibly have to hand-to-hand combat these guys. There's reptilians out there that have been reported to be like 9 to 14 feet tall. Well, if we have a 6'7", 500-pound guy, well, that's great, but that's possibly only half of what we need, right? So we could take the DNA from Jeff Day, we could take the DNA from Cleve, and we could make a humongous fighting warrior that could be 14 feet tall, maybe bigger, maybe 20. In order to have them in our repertoire, an army of these guys in the waiting in case anything happened. And this gets wild, right? Because if you think about it, you could have these guys, you could develop these bodies and have them like in a cryostasis and have them waiting just for the moment if we need them to fight a battle. Now you could say, well, why can't we make robots? Well, robots are great, but we're not at that stage where robots are better than humans. And robots just don't have the physical strength yet, and they don't have the flexibility that we have either. They're easy to destroy. Now, if we can take what we understand from the P3 assets and allow them to be put into these larger guys or women and protect them from psionic attacks. So you take the knowledge that we've gained from the P3s, all of the battlefield information that and data that we've acquired. How do we protect those individuals from a psionic attack from an alien species? How do we protect the public from a psionic attack? How do we protect Earth from a psionic attack? Okay, great. We take that information. How do we protect us from a physical attack? How do they fight? What weapons do they use? What techniques do they use? How many are in a battalion if they go out to battle? The same kind of information you would use in a military war. You take that, you put it into the DNA and the knowledge base of these big guys that we create, and you take the P3 information, you put that into these big guys, and you take the emotional, diplomatic capabilities, and you put that information into these big guys. Now you have the ultimate warrior, and I'm not talking about the wrestling, the wrestler from the 80s and 90s. I'm talking about a full circle, able and willing combatant. There's lots of big guys on the planet that aren't able to, diplomatically figure out a solution to a problem. There's lots of guys that are diplomatically able to figure out a solution, but they wouldn't be able to battle if they needed to. You need all of that DNA combined to be put in. A lot of time, so I'll move on to the next series of questions, is why don't we ever see, really large aliens in these abduction scenarios? Well, one of the reasons is because they have these little gray robots that go out and they take the DNA, and that's it. That's all they do. They don't give us a lot of information. They just take our DNA and off they go. Very few times we'll see a Nordic that might give us a little bit of information before sending us on our way. It's basically like delivery pizza. They're like, hey, we took what we wanted, we ate, now we're going to throw it in the garbage. They throw us back home. Most aliens that we have or have been reported in alien abduction scenarios are smaller. They're either 3 to 4 to 5 feet tall, little grays, or they are Nordics that could be like 7 to 10 feet tall, or they could be more obscure. They could be the mantids, right? The praying reptilians. The praying mantis type beings. And those things can be a wide variety of height. And then you have the reptilians, which can be 6 to 14 feet tall. I mean, it's a big range there too. So we don't see, and the only species that we've heard that it's massively muscular is the reptilians. The Nordics present as like 6, 7 to 10 feet tall, but they're typically about 6 feet tall, 6 to 7 feet tall. But they do have muscles. They're very defined musculature. They look super intense in their face. Some people have stated that they believe that the Nordics are actually not Nordics, but they're a reptilian in Nordic clothing. Not clothing, but like a transmogrification. Basically just a pretend Project Bluebeam, kind of disguise in front of their face. I don't know if that's true, but I'm just saying. I mean, there's lots of humanoids out there that look human, so I don't necessarily think that all of them are like that, but maybe reptilians do that sometimes. But what I'm saying is that there are aliens out there that are very muscular. And they always come muscular. And you never see a super skinny version, right? So it's clear that they've used the DNA to make their bodies muscular, to make their bodies more resilient to anything, resilient to disease, resilient to physical attacks, resilient to being able to lift heavy items if they needed to, because they have the physical capability to. Maybe they have the technology to just lift it with, a pen or something like that. But if they needed to, they could. They have the physical capability to do so. So why wouldn't we use that for our own military? Why wouldn't we have a bunch of guys in cryostasis? Because that would be playing God, right? That would be wrong. But if we ever want to save humanity, we'd have to have the capability to take these guys down. And I bet you the government has figured out a way to have some sort of army waiting in the wings, if needed, to to fight. Super soldier, right? Captain America. Captain America was intelligent, but didn't have psychic capabilities. Really had strength capabilities and intelligence, but not, I don't know if he had super intelligence, but he was smart. So anyway, if you were to build an army to fight the aliens, what would you want to include? Would you want to include some guys like Cleve Dean? Would you want to include some guys like like Dabe, like Jeff Dabe? These superhuman, super strength individuals. If you get a chance, go watch Superhumans by Stan Lee. You'd have to find it on YouTube or some streaming device or streaming channel. But the Superhumans, they basically went out and interviewed all these guys that had these amazing capabilities. A guy that could like fold his shoulders in because he didn't have a collarbone, born without a collarbone. He could fold his shoulders into his chest and like squeeze into like an 18-inch pipe. Guys that could memorize an entire cityscape and then draw it. I mean, just amazing stuff. You know, Magneto type qualities where things would like stick to them like magnets. Just amazing stuff out there. And there's guys like Dean and Dave that are out there too that we could benefit from. Humanity could benefit from that. I'm not saying make them a guinea pig, but if they're willing to, you know, help, then why not, right? So anyway, who would you want on your team if you had to create a well-rounded military? Just thinking out loud. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. I love you. Take care of yourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams, and as always, continue to question the universe around you. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves. Lockdown Universe out. Peace.